Good evening. Welcome back to Capital Tonight, a statewide look at politics. I'm Tim Boyum. It's Wednesday, time for the advocates, the folks whose job it is to research the topics we talk about each and every night. Tonight, we're joined by Donald Bryson from the conservative Americans for Prosperity and Rob Schofield from the progressive NC Policy Watch. Gentlemen, welcome back to the program. Good to see you as always.
Thanks, Tim.
Thanks.
All right, so we had these offsetting, you could call it ACA rulings yesterday. Rob, what do you make of it? I mean, earlier in the day, the opponents were cheering, and later in the day, the supporters were cheering.
About an hour later.
Yeah, an hour, yeah.
You know, the D.C. Circuit in Washington had a 2-to-1 opinion in which the two judges sort of seized upon you might want to call it a typo or a technicality in the way the original Affordable Care Act was drafted, and said, therefore, we can't have subsidies at the state level in these states that don't have state exchanges, which essentially defeats the whole purpose of the law. So the notion that that's what Congress intended really doesn't make any sense. And the Fourth Circuit, which covers North Carolina, based in Richmond, unanimously said, you're right, that doesn't make any sense. We're not going to throw out this entire law on a technicality. The circuits are divided now. We'll have to see what happens. I think a lot of people expect that the D.C. Circuit will rehear the case, the full 11 members of the D.C. Circuit, which would actually, if you look at the membership of the D.C. Circuit, more likely produce a different result. I think that's most likely to happen. I think everybody needs to keep their powder dry.
Our court system
and just everybody just stay calm. No major earth-shattering events anytime soon.
Except for we do have a few elections this fall that will prevent that from happening. Donald, what do you make of that? That a typo, or that it was the intention that all states would allow these subsidies to?
Well, if it was the intention, then they should have written that out, where it was not just an exchange established by a state. It should have been any exchange. Going after congressional intent or framers' intent or anything like that is for things that are ambiguous, like cruel and unusual. Cruel and unusual means different things at different times, but established by the state is pretty clear. And if they meant to include state and federal exchanges, then they should have written it that way. And I think it's just indicative of how poorly written this whole law was to begin with.
Well, I agree with you there that this was a law that was drawn up by a cadre of lobbyists and special interests that they were trying to appease, and I think all admit that it was an imperfect piece of legislation that had lots of errors in it. But the notion that one of the central purposes of it would be defeated in this way, I just don't think that's going to happen.
Is this, if anything, a sign that we're going to have court case after court case? And I know you guys are not fans of the law, obviously, and it's part of the Senate race and other races. I mean, is this a sign that we're going to just continue to see court case after court case?
Oh yeah, you'll see court case after court case. We've seen the Obama administration have their hands slapped back on executive overreach of the law, or how this law overreaches in other cases, such as with the Hobby Lobby decision. And the plaintiffs in the Halbig decision thought that this was overreach, that, hey, you don't have the power, the IRS doesn't have power under Section 36B to administer these subsidies. And so it's, the decision in the D.C. Circuit said, hey, you're overreaching. You don't have the power to do this under the law itself.
Here's why I think it's going to wither away, these challenges. The law is popular. The poll showed that three quarters of the Republicans who have actually gotten subsidies under the law.
Of Americans
just a second, let me finish, Don.
Sure.
3/4 of the Republicans who have received subsidies under the law think it's a good law. They like it. They like its impact. It's covering millions of people, more every day, hundreds of thousands of North Carolinians, despite the obstruction of the McCrory administration. I think that overall, over time, the popularity of the law, the notion that we would cut millions of people off of health insurance, people are going to realize that that's madness. We're going to keep fixing the law, improving it, but the notion we're going to do away with it through court suits, or that they're going to just go on ad infinitum, I just don't think is right.
The latest Real Clear Politics poll average of polls says that more than 55% of Americans disapprove of the law, compared to 39% of those that approve. As far as obstruction of the McCrory administration, come on. I don't know. I think that's a mischaracterization.
Well, I think they
but the law is wildly unpopular. People think that this has driven up premiums. Nearly 500,000 North Carolinians received cancellation notices directly due to this law. It's unpopular. People don't like it.
It is
disagree about.
It is divisive in a lot of ways, though. I mean, there's no question about that.
No doubt.
Do we think it's still a top issue in the fall campaign, or no?
I really don't think so. Again, because I think over time, the efforts to lob bombs at candidates over it have failed. I think over time, people want health reform. They want more people to have health insurance. And the notion that Speaker Tillis is somehow going to defeat Kay Hagan by arguing that we should repeal Obamacare, I just think that the time for that argument has come and gone. I just don't think it's a winner. As a progressive, I hope they keep trying to make it because I think it's a losing argument.
Do you think it's Tom Tillis's winning way?
I don't know if it's Tom Tillis's winning way. I don't know that it's a silver bullet in a campaign or anything like that, but I do know it's an issue that a lot of the American people are very unhappy about. And I know that it's something that people will make a lot of political hay about, and we're going to keep driving the issue and try to get real healthcare reform in America.
All right, we're almost out of time, but I briefly want to ask about this. We had the sales tax cap issue with the local governments that's really blowing up here at the end of session. We don't know what the House thinks, frankly, but the Senate is pushing it through. Rob, what do you make of this debate?
I thought it was ironic that on the day that Forbes magazine rated Raleigh as sort of the #1 place to do business and start your career in America, so it's obviously this very successful city, that the Senate's coming with this plan that the city fathers and mothers of Raleigh think is a terrible imposition on them, and the folks in Mecklenburg County too. The folks who have preached local control are now purporting to say, well, wait a minute, we're going to control how much you can raise at the local level and for what purpose. I don't think it's going to go through. It's a part of a long list of things the Senate's been proposing here at the end of the session that I don't think there's an appetite for in the House, nor do I think it'll become law. I'd be real surprised, maybe, but I'd be real surprised.
Hey, the governor said he's still studying the issue, and you guys appear to be as well.
Yeah, we're still studying the issue. I think Rob has a really good point on the local control issue. I mean, people want government to be closer to home, and this may eat away at that some. At the same time, it's not it's not a tax increase, which I'm very happy about, and that was a direction they could have taken. But we're still trying to figure out what in the world they're doing it and why exactly they're trying to do it right now. This is really, really late in the game to launch into something like this.
I know you guys are not part of the Republican Party, and you make sure of that, but you are more on the conservative leaning. Sure. What's it been like this session? Because we see sort of conservatives on different sides of the page on a lot of issues.
Well, when you have one party that controls, it doesn't matter if it's Democrat or Republican, when you have one party that controls every branch of government, then you're always going to see the growth and increase of the size of government. It doesn't matter if they're Republican or Democrat. And so we're glad that they're fighting with each other, but at some point these guys just need to pack up and go home.
Well, I'll agree with you.
I was going to say, everybody agrees with
good
that,
if
right?
they'd go home soon.
All right. Well, we got to go home for now, but Rob, Donald, good to see you guys
Thanks
as always.
for having us on,
Thank
Tim.
you.
Anytime.